Ho, 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 ho. Alright, I woke up late as hell. We'll see what we managed to get done today. Also, it's Monday. And I'm still sick. And what we're doing is hard. So let's go. Let's go. Let's go. As they say. Let's go after we pour the coffee. I wish there was like food or anything, like drink, something that you could consume that make you actually feel like energetic or like energized. Do people actually feel like that? Coffee does not do that at all. It does literally the opposite, but I drink it anyway. But yes, this here is what we need to figure out now. And I don't know if we can, but we need to try. I don't know what the play is. We need to do X, Y, and Z. So how do we do that? So, okay, what am I actually doing? Like, this is a little confusing to me. What is happening here? Because we're going through everything in the X. And then we set this. So here the length is Y and Z. This doesn't work. This is Z and this is Y. And then the temp I. Let's change these to Z and Y. This is the tricky part. This is here. I somehow need to set this to be like X and Y or X and Z. Well, it's not that bad. All we need to do is just set it somewhere. I don't know. It is kind of hard. There might need to be some like if else's, and be like yeah, we're passing this from this direction. I remember I wanted to change this to make it make more sense. Because what's happening here? It's actually this is super complicated. We're going through each X. Oh yeah, I remember now. It's coming back to me. We're going through the X and the Y. And we then loop through until we like find another one. Yeah, so actually checking X here, so I'm actually wrong. Am I not? So the secondary length. But see, the issue, there is a problem here. Something is wrong, but I'm not sure what. Because here we're setting secondary length dot x to 0, and then we do this iteration here, so this doesn't do anything. Wish I had some cookies with this coffee. That would go hard. And we fetch tile selected from the tile we're currently in. If we're at the end, or the tile is not selected, or if the confirmed voxel contains this. Huh? What does this mean? If tile is not selected. I feel like I was just like drunk when I did this. Like, this is so weird. Like, I get it. If the tile isn't selected, then we have to start iterating from above. And this confirmed bounds. This is the start. So then test bounds dot size is temp vi plus 1. But if the tile is not selected, why would temp vi plus 1 be the size? That's what's weird to me. Because it should be one behind, right? We have to go through this. So, you have a section here. The section looks like this. Maybe. I don't know. So we start here. And then the length gets set to this minus the size, which is the same, because this is 0. Test bounds get set to this as the min. And then we start iterating here. We start here. This is the second iteration. Then it checks if tile is selected, which is true. Then we're setting the test bounds to be the min plus temp vi plus 1. If one of these things Okay. If none of those things are true, and we're skipping this, and we're just going straight down here to tested voxels, which is fine, I think. It means we just add this to tested voxels. And then clear it here? Wait. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Maybe this works if it's here. There. Because here we do this. So all we're doing now is we're adding this to tested voxels. As long as we don't fail, we just add it to tested voxels. That's it. I think that's fine. And then we just continue. And we check here, we do that again. Check here, do that again, check here, do that again. And then we check here. Now this is where it fails, right? So this means that if this fails here, temp vi is at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is at 4, right? So this is what triggers it here, not tile selected. So then we pop in here, and expand quad is false, so we pop in here. Then we set the test bounds to confirm the bounds, which is set nowhere. It's actually not set. Yeah, this is it. It's not set anywhere. So what we need to do here actually is, let's see, test bounds is set here. This should be test bounds again there. And then confirmed bounds should be set to test bounds and test bounds size. I'm gonna sneeze. But see, here's where I'm a little confused. Is this correct? Because we have the test bounds. So expand quad. Okay, look. So we're here at 4. So if expand quad is false, which it is, then we're setting test bounds to be minvec 3 plus temp plus 1. Right, so that means this is at 4 plus 1. That means this is now 5. But in reality, it should be 4. I think. Because if it was here, this would be 1. Because it needs to have a size of 1 to indicate that this is like a thing at all. I think. So I am subtracting 1. This is where I was like, I kind of want to change this, but if I change this, then I have to go through the entire code and change like 1,000 things, and I don't want to do that. But I kind of want to change this. I think this was a mistake. Let's think again. Because I wonder if this is an issue. Because it's like... I think that... This... This makes sense if we are at the last entry here. But it doesn't make sense if we're at an empty tile. Also, this doesn't make sense. Which means we don't need to do this at all. I think I might need to do this. We might need to split this. And we do this if... And... Or maybe not. Maybe it should be in there. It's just here we then have to say if one of these two, else. And this should be without the +1, I think. This needs another special test. And here it's gonna say if temp v3i dot x equals 0 and temp v3i dot y equals 0, then we are simply going to break. And then here, this is the loop, right? Here it needs to say break inner loop. And we break. We should just do this here. The second we need to iterate up, we confirm. I feel like this is wrong somehow. Yeah, this is wrong. This needs to do a check, like this again. If we do, if this is true, then I don't think we need this test bounds thing here. We just need the 1 bounce, I think. Holy shit. Spacing out in the middle of the thought process is terrible. God damn, I lost it. I super lost it. Jesus, what is even happening anymore? The confirmed bounds shouldn't be needed. Okay, so here we are expanding the quad. So if we run into this, that means that's the end of the line. That means break inner loop equals true, break. We don't update confirmed bounds, but we should do this. We should do this. No. No, this isn't true. This should continue. This should only say if. Like this. If we're at the end, at the top, then we're gonna set confirmed bounds here. But then test bounds hasn't been set here. But again, we shouldn't be doing test bounds. It should just be set to this, right? And we do that. And we can break. It doesn't matter if we break here, but I guess we can. And then we do this. I think that should be correct-ish. Not really doing this anymore. I'm just breaking here. Which we could change. So the question is, like, do we add tested voxel before or after this? If it's... It needs to be added before. Because otherwise it's gonna skip it. It's gonna skip it if it's at the end of the section there. So that means that the tested voxels, we will add non-selection voxels, but that's fine. It doesn't really make a difference. Anyway, I'll be right back. All right, we're back. I don't like how many breaks we have here, though. I would prefer if this was handled somewhere else. Like, that's what this was supposed to be. But right now, I don't know if we can do that. We just need to set this. Right, because we have test bounds here. But we can remove that and just replace it entirely with confirmed bounds, and then that's done. It doesn't need to be test bounds at all, ever. I think this might be okay. I'm not sure. I'm like a little wobbly whether this would work or not. However, now the question is, how do we modularize this? How do we turn this into a function? it's still not done. Because we need to check front and back as well. For that, we need a vector 3int. Pos modifier. One zero zero. Actually, in this case, this is gonna be like that, yeah. And then basically what we need to do is this is super complicated and annoying. We need like a v3i tester. And then we need to do something like v3i tester equals v3i plus pos modifier. And then we need to do something like we need to say bool has perpendicular neighbor. Because perpendicular, that's like that, right? I think. Yeah. Parallel go next to each other. Perpendicular means the other way around there. So we need to check back and front. So what we need to do is we need to say like if v3i tester.x is less than 0, or v3i tester.y is less than 0, or v3i tester.z is less than 0, or v3i tester.x is greater than or equal to selection area dot size dot x. But no, this isn't right either. Do we need to include... Oh, hold on. No, actually, no. I do think it should run here. Which then means that the v3i tester needs to be v3i selection area plus v3i plus temp v3i plus position modifier. This is too much. This needs to say if selection area, if this is less than selection area dot xmin dot x, or xmin, yeah, that works. Ymin zmin, or it's greater than selection area dot x max. Maybe. If that is true, What do I need to check here? Because what I'm doing now is we're checking if the outside is empty. That's what this is, or rather, we're checking if we're outside of the selection area. And what that means, like, being outside of the selection area basically guarantees that we don't need to do the culling that we're gonna do here. So basically what we need to do is actually say if this is greater than or equal to on the x min, and if it's less than max, I think. Or should it still be... Should it be less than or equal to? I don't know. Let's say, let's see. Yeah, it should be less than. If that is true, then what we need to do is we need to do a check of this. Exactly this, almost. So here we need a bool perp pile selected. Right? And then we need to say actually, what if we just make this be this? And then here we say minus pos modifier.x. And all of these should be and, not or. So on all of these, we're subtracting the position modifier. And then here, we're gonna add the position modifier instead. So what this is that we are making sure that the perpendicular We're we are checking that the tile is within the tile selection area. If it's outside of the tile selection area, then that guarantees that it's an edge tile, which means that it needs to be tested. While if it's not an edge tile, then we need to test its neighbor, its perpendicular neighbor, in both directions. And if either returns true as selected, then we break. Then we don't do a check. No, that's not true. That's not right either. If one returns true, then we have to check if we have already checked that tile, and if we have already checked that tile, then we don't check. But if we haven't checked, then we check. That makes sense, I think. So here, then, we're going to do a plus pos modifier. And then we're gonna do a B here. And then this is gonna subtract it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if perp tile selected A and perp tile selected B are both true as selected, then we are simply going to Then we're just gonna break. Break inner loop. Goes true, then we break. Well, it's not that simple either. This is where we need to have another boolean called bool perp check equals false. And then here we're gonna say perp check equals true. Help! Help! What's happening? What was that? Windows cannot store Bluetooth authentication codes on the local adapter. Bluetooth keyboards might not work in the system BIOS during startup. Start type of the... The start type of the background intelligent transfer service... No, that wasn't now. 56, that's now. Application. Bullshit. Vault bucket live kernel event. Bunch of numbers. Yeah, there was nothing. That's cool. Just a bunch of random disconnects with no logging. Cool. Cool. This is not a break, but rather and then here we need to say if perp tile selected A it needs to be an else if. And then we need another else if as well. Right, because then what we need to check is If A, that's always going to be positive. So if tested voxels.contains or should we say confirmed voxels? Oh, we just need to do this. And here it's negative. Let's just double check something here. Okay, so this doesn't work. So what we need to say here is if is less than 0, then but it shouldn't be able to do that, should it? No, it might. We need to guard against being out of bounds in the bit array. But what do I do then? Right? Like, if it's out of bounds, so we need to set perp check to true if a neighbor out of bounds will count as one check being false. So what we need to do is we just say I think it can just be one out of bounds equals false. And then we can say out of bounds then we set it to true. If either of these are true, we set it to true. I mean, it doesn't need to do that. We can just set. Doesn't need to be flipped or anything. We just set it to true. Then here we just check if out of bounds. Then we can check this. Else, if out. If perp tile selected A, we need to do this. And then we're gonna say if out of bounds okay, maybe I do need an out of bounds A and B. If out of bounds A, then we're gonna say nothing. We'll just do that. And then here we're gonna say if do that. And then we don't need to check that. I think this might be correct. We're almost done for today. It's gonna be a short stream, but we still have like 40 minutes left. Holy moly, this is too hard. And the worst part here is that what we need to do now, like I said, this needs to be made modular in a way where we can just pass in the direction. And that's going to suck so hard, man. I'm not sure how to do it. I think... like, I don't know if this is done. If this works. But we're gonna have to do this, basically. And it's gonna have to say... public... void... I don't know. Run 3D mesh. Execute. It's a cooler word. Then we paste this here. Then everything errors. So then we need to pass in a list of vector6 int called quads. We then need to pass in a vector6 int selection area. We need to pass in a vector3 int v3i. Then we need to pass in confirmed bounds. We should be able to just set that here, right? I think so. You just set confirmed bounds here. Tested voxels, we can also set there. Confirmed voxels, we can also set in here. Editor world data, EWD. Secondary length. That's set there, so that means secondary length can be set here. Test size, I think, is not needed at all. These can all be set here. Stand quad is set here. Position modifier is passed in. Visited voxels. I think can just be set here. Because the fact that we have visited a voxel is only relevant for each axis. I think. What else? The temp one only needs to be set in there. Test bounds. Oh, I don't know what this is supposed to be. No, actually, this is supposed to be like this. Okay. So now we have no errors, but that doesn't mean that it works. Because this here, this needs to be done in a certain way. So how do we determine whether this should be like X or Y or whatever? Like how do we do that? Because right now it's just like this. Right, because now here I think we should have an int that just says axis. And I don't know how do we determine that then? Because it's the same issue here, right? Based on the axis, whether this is X or Y or Z at the innermost section here, should depend on the axis. But I think it really just means that we have to do, because we have v3i incoming here, right? And I think we should actually say v3i equals new vector 3 int. And then this shouldn't be called v3i. This should be called start vec3i. And then here, this is where we need to set it. So let's just set this to vec3i vector 3 int dot 0. And then here we're gonna say if axis equals 0, x, then we're gonna say v3i equals new vector 3 int. Well, we just need to say equals start vec 3i there then. And then else if stop axis equals 1, then that means y. Then we need to say v3i equals new vector 3 int. And if we're going through y, which is back, then we need to check from in y first. So then this needs to be start vec 3i dot y. Like that. Oh my god, stop. What? Stop! Why is it selecting the whole thing? What even is that? What is that? It's like insert. How did I press insert? Or was it even there with my hand? Alright, somehow I did, I guess. I must have done it when I must have been fingering delete or something. Okay, so then here we need to iterate through Z. So that means Z is gonna be X, and X is gonna be there, and Y is gonna be here. Right? So this might have like a chance in hell of doing the right thing, I guess. But we also need to do the selection area size. So we have that there. Selection area in. Then we'll set vector 6. Vector area. We'll set that. And then we're just going to do the same thing here. And then here, this is going to be selection area dot set. This is then going to be set to Selection area in dot xmin. Hello, Glay, how's it going? That dot ymin. Zmin. Actually, this should be ymax. It's yxz. Xmax. Zmax. And then this should be ymin. This should be xmin. Oh. What am I up to? I'm writing a greedy meshing function. And right now I'm just trying to modularize it so that we can just check a bunch of different axes with the same function without having to have the entire giant for loop repeated 3 times in the code, because that would be ass. I have lots of variables called poop. Then here, this is then zmin, xmin, ymin, zmax, xmax, ymax. Oh. Lost track of time. Call. Little American boy. Now, the issue here is how do we handle this here? Because here I'm iterating x and y. And here it's not as easy to like flip it like I'm doing here. Here I'm just like setting the base thing here. And that way we can just like I can insert the data for z into x, and then as we iterate through x here, we're actually iterating through z, right? And then that just works, I think. Actually, it won't, now that I think about it. Because now we're gonna access... I'd have to, like, unpack it. Like, we put it in v3i, and then we have to have another vector here, where we can, like, re-sort it. Like this, right? And we need this up here, then. So... we remove the selection. I think. And then this needs to say v3i unpacked. And then that's just gonna be that. But here, it's gonna be... does this make sense? So if we're iterating y, then I've put y into x and x into y. So now it's just getting flipped back there. So this should work. It's just like flipping it back and forth. This feels so clunky and shitty though. But I don't know of another way to actually do this. This needs to be in. Secondary length. References would be very... This is a use case for references. Where references would be insanely useful here. Or pointers. And see, here's where the problem here is. So here we have a secondary length. So how do we handle this? Temp. I think we just have to do the same thing here. Kind of. Yeah, we're gonna just have to say like vector 3i temp v3i unpack. And then we need to have this an axis checker. And then we say temp v3i unpacked equals temp v3i And then here, this is like that, but this is 0. And this is then... like this. Or is that correct? Let's see, this is XY. Yeah, no, it's not correct, is it? I think this should be Y and this should be X. Because when we're checking the Z, well, I mean, no, I think actually this is incorrect. Let's go up here and... Okay, so when we are checking X, we are checking X normally. It's X, X, Y, and Z. So when we're checking Y, which is that way, no, Y is along. That means that we need to check Y, Y. And then we iterate Z. Actually, X is incorrect. Here, it needs to be like this. We need to iterate X. Need to iterate in X and then in Z and then in Y. As we are creating walls. For X, we yes. Oh, that makes it so even more complicated. So what does that mean? When we're iterating Y, we then need to iterate Y. Yeah, X and Y just need to be swapped. And then for Z, Z is a little different. So when we're doing Z, it needs to be we're going up from the bottom. So then we're doing, it doesn't really matter which way we do it there. It's either ZX or Z or ZY or ZX. It doesn't matter. Well, actually, when you're doing Z, we're still gonna be checking X or Y first. So, right? Yeah, because when we're checking X, we're gonna go through X and iterate in the Z until we've checked the entire X, and then we go over to Y. And in Y, we go through Y and iterate the Z until we've gone through the entire Y. Or the entire X, rather. And when we're checking Z, we need to go through, because Z is up, right? Then we need to go through X, X and Y until we've gone through the entire thing, and then yeah, so it's actually Z that's normal. Maybe if we do it this way instead. We just do XYZ here. And then here, we put this here. And then we put that there. I think that makes more sense. That way we can keep everything in a way that feels more normal. Because, yeah, checking X is just iterating through it normally, like it would be a cube. You go through... Because you can either iterate through X, Y, and Z. Whatever. My brain is too... See, in my opinion, this is the stuff that's hard with programming. Or rather, this is what makes it take a lot of energy and time. It's not about, like, programming itself being hard. It's about, like, having to guard the code against, like, going out of bounds and stuff like that. Like... all of those little, like, minute things you have to, like, you know what the code needs to do. It's actually not complicated, but then you need to, like, figure out how to make, like, implement it in a way that doesn't, like, crash
from going out of bounds, or in a way that doesn't revolve around just copy pasting the code and changing it, because then you have to, if you need to change anything, you need to change it in like 100 different places. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just trying to guard myself from having to fix the code in like 12 different places. If anything here is wrong, it should just say execute greedy mesh. And then it should pass in a bunch of different things here. Axis 0, quads, selection area, start vec3i. I actually don't really know what that should be. Should that just be the v3i? No. That should be... I think that should always be selection area dot min vec3. And post modifier. It doesn't need to be set here. The post modifier can be set here. Right, because we just get rid of that there. So then we're just gonna set it here. It's gonna say position modifier. This should be for X. Yeah. And then you need a position modifier for all of these. In Y, this is then gonna be X that needs to be checked. And here it's gonna be Z that needs to be checked. I think it's almost there. Almost. Almost. And then once we can generate meshes, then we need to, or quads, then we need to implement a way to check them. And then we should be very on track to making the game run again. After that, it's really just fixing up the light casting properly again. Because what's really missing still is potentially some Pathfinder changes. I'm not sure though, but maybe. We're gonna need to add the rooms and the buildings to a... I think there's like a name for it, but I don't know what it's called. Hello, ho, ho. And we're gonna stop right now. Spatial partitioning, is that what it's called? Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. It's like quad trees. Spatial partitioning. It's going okay. I'm working on the greedy measure here, and it's a pain in the ass. I'm separating it out into its own function, so that we can just like pass in an axis and then we iterate through that axis using the same code. But modularizing a double nested for loop is a pain in the ass. Because this for loop needs to iterate through in different axes based on which axis we're generating quads for, and then the internal axis, or the internal for loop here, also needs to iterate a different along a different axis. It's gonna be a big fun function to fix if there's a bug. Well, that's why I'm doing this, so that it won't be as bad, because if I copy paste all of this 3 times over, then if there's a bug, that's gonna be even worse. Because then I have to fix it in 3 different places inside of this for each axis. So yeah. I'm just trying to avoid massive code repetition here. But yeah, it should basically be like this. Hello, Keebs. When I first made mine, I made a function for each direction because it was too complicated. I refactored it in the end, but man, that was something. Yeah, I mean, that's what I did too, kind of. But I only did it, like, I only made it for X. So I could finalize that before I started thinking about modularizing the axes. So now we're refactoring it and trying to get it to work. But we'll do that next time. I got up a little late, so it's a little bit of a short stream. And also it's Monday. Oh! But it is time for meeting. So, until next time, thanks for hanging. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Also, we might stream tonight. I don't know. The thing is, I'm still sick, but it's basically like recurring headaches. I think it's really just carb withdrawal. And they come at the end of the day. So it's like, if I don't get them, I'll stream. If I do, I won't be able to stream. It's that simple. So we'll see. Yeah, it is literally pizza withdrawal. But yeah, until next time. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.